Love the mouth-watering taste of delicious, perfectly cooked bacon?
Bacon! Bacon! Where's the bacon? I smell bacon! 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 Gotta be bacon! Only one thing smells like bacon! That's bacon! 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 There!
Welcome to the What's Sizzling podcast with Big Bacon.
Hey, look at all that meat.
And now your host, Big Bacon, Brad Hollister.
It's bacon!
What is up, my people? Welcome to episode 4 of What's Sizzling with Big Bacon, or El Tocino Grande if you're Espanol. Man, week 3 got a crazy good response. Again, when I started this thing, I wasn't thinking to get a bunch of, listeners and all that. It was just a thing to pass time, a project for me. But holy hell, y'all listened a lot last week, man, and it's continuing. I mean, even some of the past episodes even got a little boost from our episode last week. So I want to thank everybody for downloading it, subscribing it, sharing it, doing everything y'all been doing, because damn, you've been with me every step of the way throughout this injury. And a little update on this injury, and I'm saying this with the biggest smile on my face. This Monday, I finally go in for surgery. That's the biggest stress of this injury. Like, yeah, it hurts, but it's not as bad as you think like a torn ACL would be. On paper, it sounds like it hurts a lot more. But being able to get surgery means I could start rehab, and I could start physical therapy, and I could start recovery. And I can get everything done for this knee to get back in the ring. So, super happy that I have surgery this Monday. And everyone that's been out there hit me up asking me here's like for an update. This is the biggest update I can give you. I am getting surgery on Monday. Also, we are going to have the first ever live edition of What's Sizzling with Big Bacon. Before Pioneer Valley Professional Wrestling takes over the Eastfield Mall, we will be taking over the Zombie Hideout comic book shop. And in that comic book shop, we will be having a little Q&A and a live edition of What's Sizzling with none other than one of my best friends in the whole entire world, Hammer Tunis. So, this past weekend, I seen a lot of you guys at Northeast Wrestling. A lot of you guys said you're listening and subscribing. And it was really cool to have people come up to me and talk about the podcast. Like I said, I'm one of those, when I have a new project, I throw myself into it a little bit too much, if you ask me. I try to really get ingrained in everything podcast. And I was more excited when people were coming up to me talking about the podcast than I was people talking about either my injury or just wrestling in general. So it was really cool to know that the Northeast Wrestling fans are listening. But at those shows, we had Prison Break on last Friday. My boys in Zane the Rude showed out in the first match, all over the internet, doing that crazy chokeslam destroyer. Those two are madmen. And then we had Matt Taven making his big return to Northeast Wrestling, defending his Ring of Honor World Championship against our guest last week, Pro Wrestling Savior JT Dunn. And holy hell, when you want to talk about great matches, man, I was glued to the screen that entire match, and it wasn't just because they're my friends. It was because I knew there was going to be some really good professional wrestling happening. We also had John Moxley versus Pentagon, which they went all over the Mid-Hudson Civic Center. That was a wild brawl. There was one point I was out there with my knee all braced up and looking so fine in my suit, and they were brawling around. I was like, God damn, I hope they don't come towards me because I'm going to have to hobble out of here. So that was a great event. And then Saturday we were in Norwich, Connecticut. We had a lot of great matches then. And then Sunday we were in Scranton. We had a crazy thunder and lightning storm, and it was raining. And Enzo and Cass stepped up, and they started reading Green Eggs and Ham for everybody. And that was really fun. And I can't believe that they actually went out there and did it. I was kind of just throwing it out there, but dude, both those guys are great. And Michael Lombardi, he puts together great shows, man. Like, if you went to any of the ones from the past weekend, like, Northeast Wrestling does not mess around, like, they're here to give you a good time and make sure you enjoy some very good professional wrestling. So I want to thank Northeast Wrestling for letting me be there this entire weekend, just hanging out, caning around. I feel like me and Glenn Jacobs are not the only canes in wrestling. We got to get a couple more. We got to have a little cane stable. I got my walking cane, and then he is Kane. Maybe we get Dean Kane. I don't know. We're going to find some more Kanes. But this week we have none other than the horror king, Vinny Marseglia. Hell, maybe he can get a cane. Who knows? But Vinny, we talk about a lot here. We talk about his time in Ring of Honor. We talk about his love for horror movies. And hell, we talk about sewing a little bit because we're sensitive souls and sometimes we need to sew. So I'm going to throw it to that interview right away. Right after that, you're going to get some flippin' bacon. Right now, I'm going to throw it to my past self in my interview with the one and only horror king, Vinny Marseglia.
The bacon, the bacon, the bacon.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to episode 4 of What's Sizzling with Big Bacon. And my guest today, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome a guy who beats to his own drum before he beats you with the red rum. To him, your screams are just a form of a way to sing because it's none other than the horror king, Vinny Marseglia. Vinny, what's sizzling, baby?
What's going on there, Big Bacon? That was a hell of an intro. That was the best intro I've ever had.
Dude, listen.
Any podcast.
I fucked up the first one. It was the first one I fucked up. So
Yeah,
I'm happy that we turned it around and
that intro alone is a reason to tune into the What's Sizzling with Bacon right there. See what I mean?
That's it, baby. I try to have a little fun intro for everybody who comes on, you know?
There you go.
So, dude, it's been a while since we talked. I feel like I was seeing you every weekend at one point in my life.
Yeah, it has, man. And just, from the outside, looking at you do your thing, you've been definitely, with the little accident that we had with Bacon,
yeah.
But before that, man, you were killing it. You were doing your thing. You know what I mean? And
well, dude, I don't think I've ever told you this, but I've said this in podcasts that I've been on in the past. One of the biggest things that changed me and changed my life in wrestling was a conversation you and I had. And like I said, I don't think I ever told you this, but one time it was after a match we had. You told me that, hey man, your work's there, and I feel like you have the character finally with Big Bacon. Now it's just fine tuning that character and finding who he is. And I took the risk with cutting the hair. I changed it up to the mohawk. I got new singlet designs. I try to change everything up, and since then, shit really took off. So that really comes back to that conversation.
I appreciate that, man. Yeah, I mean, we had that. When was it the match that we had outdoors?
Yes, it was, because I remember it was at a stadium.
Okay, so it was for Northeast Wrestling then.
Yes.
Okay, yeah. I do remember and the other match. It was a PvP show. Remember we had an outdoor match. Was it me and you that wrestled each other? It was singles, right?
Yeah, it was me and you in singles.
Yeah. That was fun too. You know what I mean, for what it was. But yeah, man, it's cool to really see you like kind of come into your own and find your voice. With the whole Big Bacon thing, and it's everything I've seen. It's very you know what I mean, and you can tell.
Thank you.
How comfortable you've gotten with it. So it's pretty awesome to see, man.
And we're talking about gimmicks that are us, man. Like I've seen you for a long time, and I've seen so many iterations of Vinny Marseglia. How did you come up with the Horror King one? Because, dude, like I am not one that will go out of my way to seek out like videos online of guys doing promos. Like, I don't know. It's not for me. But anytime you post something, I think you are one of 3 people that I have a notification for on Twitter that anytime you post something, it tells me, because dude, the content you're putting out is insane, man.
Yeah, man, I try to do it, everybody has their own way, and there's no necessary like right way. You can do it however you want, however suits you. But I just feel that anything that I ever put out, I try to make it so when you watch it, when you go to the movies, for example, and you go to the movie theater and you watch whatever movie you're about to watch, you see all the trailers, right? And when you watch those trailers, usually you can get some type of feel or feeling other than just the verbiage that you hear throughout those trailers. It's the the atmosphere, the content, or the visual of what's going on that gives you a real feel to what you're expecting or watching. And so I try to put it out there in a very movie format, because I've always been, being involved. I'm involved with the film stuff and just loving movies and horror films growing up as a kid. It's one of those things that, I try to make everything different. You know what I mean? I like to kind of put it out there so people can be, watch it and really kind of get invested into what's going on and be entertained by it. So I appreciate it. I'm glad that you enjoy them, and I hope a lot of other people do. I'm sure there's people that aren't, and that's okay too. But
no, it's not. Fuck those people.
So I try to do it a little different. Everybody has their own way. But as far as like the Horror King goes, so you've known me for a while, Bacon, and it took me a very long time to like, kind of find my comfort zone of who I was, just in professional wrestling. So I went through, like you said, different looks, even in my earlier years. Not knowing who Vinny Marseglia was.
What do you think your worst look was?
What's that?
What do you think your worst look was? Because I've had some bad looks. If you had to pick, what was your worst look?
Oh, geez. Christ. I mean, all of them when I was younger. I guess. All of them when I was younger.
Anytime, like, because I was teaching at one point for like a 9-to-5 job, if you will, and anytime the kids would try to look up me wrestling on Google, there was like the worst picture of me ever. And I'm like, oh God, I'm like, that's the worst look.
What's funny about that? You talk about looking, people looking you up. Me and Taven always talk about how we have our worst shit on YouTube. On YouTube, anything that you look up of me is all my worst stuff, like my older stuff, like all my worst stuff. You know what I'm saying? I've never seen some of my good matches and top rope that I have, like Tommaso and all
you'll
those
never see those.
I haven't seen those. Those will never see the light of day. But so anyway, like going through all those different looks, it was when I got signed in 2016, it still wasn't there yet. I was doing the Insanity brand, which was kind of I enjoyed it. I kind of liked it, and it kind of rolled with the look and stuff. So it was kind of like it started there, and then after TK broke his leg, actually, is when, because stuff kind of got sidelined, and it was there was a lot of time to kind of think of what was going on and whatever. So it was then when I really started to think deeply on like, well, what are my interests? Like, what is some stuff that I'm interested in that I can kind of like bring to pro wrestling that might be a little different for people to, different from what everybody else is doing? How can I kind of separate myself from the pack? And it was actually my wife, and we were sitting in our living room, and have you ever been to my house, Bacon? I don't know if you have.
I have not, but okay. I have seen some pictures that you put up and showed me, and you got some cool shit up in there.
Yeah, so we have, like, our house is like a horror museum. So we got a bunch of different collector's items, and she had mentioned, why don't you bring some horror stuff into wrestling or into what you do? And that was literally it. And I kind of looked around, and I was like, oh, and it started with like, it was started off with the stuff that's already been done in horror, which is a lot. And I started, like, I wore the Lost Boys jacket. And then
I was about to say, I remember the first one was the Lost Boys.
The Lost Boys, that's kind of how it started. It was the Lost Boys jacket. And I was like, wow, this kind of is cool. I always loved the Lost Boys. It's my favorite film. And I kind of liked the look of the alternative look they had in the movie. But I wasn't going, I wasn't a vampire, but I did like the wardrobe. So I'm trying to like connect that. And then on the way to a Northeast Wrestling show, I picked up like a regular Jason mask. It was a high replicated one, but and then I wrote the Insanity on the mask or whatever. And then I came out with it, and the crowd responded pretty well to it. Well enough for me to think like, if I may have something here that I can work with. So after that, it was just continuing the evolution of the Horror King. And basically, it's evolved to, it's always been me. That's the thing. Yeah. People are always like, oh, the gimmick of whatever. It's just like this stuff is like a huge part of, my life, my wife's life. My daughter even loves a lot of the stuff that we like. So it's a huge part of my interests, along with pro wrestling. So it's pretty much a crossover between the two. And now it's just what you see is basically, Vinny Marseglia, the person, amplified in that genre, I guess you could say.
Yeah, absolutely. And like you said, when you talk about the movie trailers, like you get a feel for every single one of your matches just through watching those videos, because there's parts where like you're going to a match and you're a little bit more on edge. So like that video will kind of have that feel too. You know what I mean? Like
Right.
I love the subtlety and the changes of things. It makes it, like you said, where you want to watch the next one, to try to, I feel like there's like a long arcing story over them. You know what I mean?
Right. And it's just, I love being, I mean, we've talked plenty of times. Like, I love being creative with any like video content or photo content, or, even when it comes down to a look in pro wrestling, I love all that stuff. You know what I mean? That's a huge interest of mine. And it always has been in pro wrestling ever since I was a kid. Like Ultimate Warrior was a favorite when I was little, the Rockers, and, then it transitioned and I was a big fan of the Hardys, and it had a lot, of course they were great, but it had a lot to do with their look and their appearance and how different they were standing out from everyone else. And that's kind of something that I've always kind of was interested in.
And out of that list too, it's funny you said it, because I noticed this with you as well, where like, other than the Rockers, all those other characters had like a dark feel to them, but would be very vibrant in terms of what they would wear. And I do notice that with you, with like I think the knee pads are like the sickest thing ever. Like, I'm a big fan of like the knee pads are so, I never even thought to put anything on my knee pads other than, extra knee pads or knee pad covers.
Right. Yeah.
And then like, that's just Michael Myers' face. Like, it's fucking sick.
And that, it happened so randomly, and literally I had it there and I saw it, and it was a full mask. It was a little cheaper one. So I was like, you know what? And I cut the face out, and then I just sewed it to my knee pad myself. And it was kind of cool. It did fall off though, but somebody bought it. So I hope whoever that person is, you're enjoying it. But it just, different stuff like that is kind of cool. And I like just trying, you never know. So that's why I like to try a bunch of different things. You never know what you might get out of something. I don't know.
When I think it was at that same outdoor PvP show, you tied a bandana around it, but you gave him a Tupac bandana. So at one point,
that.
At one point, you're giving me Steve in the corner, and I'm kind of just like laughing because I'm like, oh shit, I got Tupac, Michael Myers fucking stomping me out right now.
Yeah, that was a good time, man. We had some good times. The Northeast Wrestling match, was that a singles that we had?
No, we were supposed to have a singles one time, but instead my match got switched to me and Wrecking Ball versus Ron Zombie and Sexy Beast Bull Dread. So, I think I won in that situation,
Right.
I didn't have to wrestle you. I got to have that tag match. So, like, my career took off since then.
Right.
No, but we had one at Northeast that was a triple threat with Flip. I think it opened WrestleFest.
Right. Yeah.
And, dude, that was, like, one of my first matches at Northeast, so I was really happy because I was like, all right, Flip could do everything in the world, because I didn't really know Flip well at that time, and I was like, I know Vinny is like, I could have a match with you in my sleep at that point, because
right,
dude, it's just like certain guys you step in there and you're like, all right, I can work with this guy, whatever.
Yeah,
so
exactly, yeah, you can kind of like, very versatile to whatever. It's funny because whenever you come up in subject anywhere, it always comes up, and I always mention it, was when me and Taven wrestled you at Chaotic.
Oh yeah,
you were very young. I mean, how old are you? Probably 19, 20 maybe.
Probably right around that range.
Yeah, but even in there, man, like you could just tell just the way you would move and stuff that we'd always say like, yeah, that guy's going to be real good, because just with the amateur background, typically with like we were friends with Magnum back in the day, and he had an amateur background, and he was just very natural at picking up pro wrestling. And that's the cool thing about guys with those amateur backgrounds, is that it comes very, very natural and easy for them. So it's cool to see.
Well, the reason I feel that, and like I hear that from a lot of people, and I always try to break it down, like why that is. And I think a lot of it is because you get to not skip, but the chaining portion of training. Because like when you train, you learn your bumps and everything, but one of the essential things you learn is chaining. And I feel like that comes really easy to wrestlers, where we could kind of like get through that part quick and then get into the bumping and psychology and other things.
Right. Because that catcher's wrestling comes very natural for an amateur.
Yeah, very similar.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So when we were talking about Ring of Honor, that you signed in 2016, but I remember it might have been like 2012 maybe. I remember you had a match with Jay Lethal for the Ring of Honor world title. Like at that time, how did you feel about going into that? Because that's big pressure. It's in your hometown too, right?
Yeah, hometown. So that match happened in 2015. And 2012 though is when I started doing early. It was like transitioning 2011, 2012, because I did my first tryout in 2011 after a year in of training at Spikes. So after that, I went to the one camp. Got told get out there, get some more experience. And I was already wrestling a little bit before Spikes, but Spike was ultimately the one who Spike and Ryan Drew are the ones that broke us down and built us back up correctly. And basically 2012 came around and did another camp, and that's when I got a phone call to do the Rhino match, which was 30 seconds of me getting gored out of my fucking boots.
Dude, after this I'll tell you a quick Rhino thing,
which was awesome, you know what I mean? And
absolutely.
I call, when they said it's 30 seconds Rhino with the gore, my mind was just like, okay, this is gonna be the best goddamn gore that you ever seen. You know what I mean? If that's all I'm getting, then you're gonna get the gore, you know what I mean?
You're gonna get the full gore.
Yeah. And so to go back now to fast forward to 2015 with a match with Lethal, I did one more camp, and this was after I took a little hiatus a little bit away from wrestling just to get a house. My wife wanted to have our daughter and stuff. We wanted to have a kid, so we took care of that. Yeah, and I got back into the mix, and I was working out hard. I did one more camp, and they were interested, and then I remember when I was told I was in Keystone Pro Wrestling in Pennsylvania, and I remember I was told it's you and Lethal for the title, and you're in West Warwick, so be ready. And I was just like, I was super excited. I couldn't wait to tell Taven and Bennett and everybody that, just how excited. I was just super excited for it.
Yeah, because that's so sick, man. People get chances, but that's like the chance. You know what I mean? Like that's sick.
Right. Yeah. So in my mind going into that was like, all right, this is it. If I stink this up, then I think it's going to be a no-go. You know what I mean? For me. Yeah. And the match happened. Which now where I am in my career, then I would have, done a couple things differently. But as far as myself is concerned, but the match went really well, and Lethal seemed really happy with it afterwards. And then kind of right after that is when 2016 rolled around, and that's when Ring of Honor gave me a call.
And it's crazy, like, to hear you talk about, I hear yourself putting yourself in your shoes at that moment, and you're talking about like, Jay Lethal was happy about, and it's crazy now to see how much you do work with Jay Lethal now, like, because I try to keep up with Ring of Honor as much as possible, and like I'm always seeing like anything with the Kingdom and Lethal and Gresham, like they're all that, like all those different combinations. So it's just really cool to see what 2015 to 2018, 19 really changed everything.
Yeah, man. And I ended up having another singles match with Lethal in God, I don't even remember where we had that match, but it wasn't as long, but you could just tell, the chemistry has progressed. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
So it's pretty cool, man. Yeah, that was definitely a career moment in my, when I was coming up that like I was really jazzed for.
You just said jazzed. Did you do jazz fingers when you said it?
Jazzed for. Yeah. I don't even know why the fuck I said that, but whatever.
Dude, it's fucking jazz it up, bro. This is a jazz friendly show. No, so you're talking about Rhino. The night I tore my ACL, it was announced earlier that day that I was going to be wrestling Rhino for Northeast Wrestling. And I was super pumped about that because I'm like, oh, great. Like, short guy versus short, thick guy. Like, this is going to be great. And then everything ended up happening. And I told Michael Lombardi, I said, listen, I could take a gore with a torn ACL. Like, don't get it twisted. Like, if you just wanted him to gore me and do the 1, 2, 3, I could still take that bump. but he told me no. So
That's
Oh,
amazing. That would have been that's actually a match I would like to see.
Just gore 1, 2, 3, and I'll take the best damn gore you ever seen. I'll go in with the same mindset.
There you go.
Oh, dude. So we talked a lot about creativity and everything. You have some of the most insane tattoos. Like I'm a tattoo guy, but I am not like, okay, I'm a matching freak. That's probably my problem. I feel like everything, like my clothes need to match. Everything needs to match 24/7. So all my tattoos are just black. I have a little bit of green in a tattoo, and it drives me nuts when it doesn't match.
So you have to wear green socks at least.
Something,
to match
green panties or something. Jesus.
Right. To match your tattoo. I got it.
So you have some of the most like colorful and like insane ink ever. Like, when did you start getting into tattoos?
So as soon as I turned 18, I went and I got my first tattoo, which is like 2 kanji symbols on my forearm here. And then it just
you didn't cover it up ever?
What's that?
You didn't cover that? Like, because a lot of people like don't like their first tattoo.
Oh, I've gotten some cover-ups. Like, let me tell you. When I was a young kid,
the first one's still kicking.
First one's still kicking.
That's what I'm talking about, baby.
It has good meaning. It means good health. So like, to stay healthy throughout life stuff. And so it's kind of a good meaning. So I always kind of kept that there. But when I was younger, before I actually knew I wanted to do something with wrestling, and just being a huge nerd wrestling fan that I am, I thought Randy Orton had the coolest tribal tattoos I've ever seen. And,
whoa. You don't like my tribal tattoos, bro?
Nah, yours stink. No, speaking of cover-ups, if you need a good artist, I got a business card for you. I'm just kidding.
You piece of shit.
But I thought it was the coolest, so I got ones that were similar, and it was like a dumb move because later when I decided, like, wait a second, I actually want to do this for a career. I was like, well, I got to cover this up. First off, I'm not even me personally. Now I wouldn't get a tribal tattoo, but then back then it was like the thing,
they're the coolest.
Like, and so and there's still some that aren't bad or anything. It's just
I would say the early 2000s, the tattoo trend was the barbed wire around the bicep. And the mid 2000s, like it. Oh, dude, come on. That was the wave back in the day. But the mid 2000s, like early 2010s even, was definitely tribal. And now all that shit's passe.
So I got some of that covered up. But as far as my other stuff, like I have my daughter's name for in the roses for Autumn Rose. I have a pumpkin on my hand because obviously I love Halloween. My wife actually has a matching pumpkin on her hand.
Oh, that's awesome.
And then what I have like the big raven on the top of my back with like a tree with like a crow on the bottom of it, which is kind of like when I did that, it was a very like symbolic thing towards like Edgar Allan Poe, because we love Edgar Allan Poe, so it's kind of that same feel to it. And then I have the Japanese style like tiger demon on my side, which is that big one I have on my side, which is like the Japanese birth symbol.
Was that the worst one?
What's that?
In terms of pain, was that the worst one?
Oh, the ribs are the worst.
That's what I was going to say. Everyone says that.
The ribs are the worst. And then
luckily I'm fat, so I don't will ever get my ribs tattooed.
The ribs were the ribs sucked. I sat there for 8 hours doing the ribs.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah. But I have that, and then I got the peacock feathers on my throat. I got my whole neck done. The peacock feathers, which at the time when I got them, it was when I was kind of evolving. Like after I started training with Spike, I started to evolve kind of like, kind of sort of into like more comfortable about myself in wrestling. And it means like change for the better. So I kind of got that like on my throat. And then I have my chest piece, which is probably one of my favorites, is like the Lost Boys. It's like a Lost Boys style. So it's got the boardwalk with the 4 skulls, and then the stereo for the soundtrack, and it's got all this different color stuff in it. But that's most of my tattoos and a lot of the stuff that they mean and stuff. But yeah, I've had to cover up some ones that I weren't like happy about.
Yeah, so yeah, Anne Marie on Twitter wanted to know is that your favorite one, the chest one?
My chest one is my favorite one, Anne Marie.
Okay, so we got that one question out of the way. I try to sprinkle the questions in. I don't want to have a question segment. I don't want to sit someone down on the hot seat, you know?
Yeah. No, I got you.
But no, I say it all the time. The only ride I'm afraid of is Ferris wheels. So the giant Ferris wheel on your chest is fucking terrifying.
Ferris, are you afraid of Ferris wheels?
Okay, so let me explain what. Oh, what? I
get why you would be afraid of Ferris. I'm not afraid of them, but I understand why somebody would be afraid of them, especially when they stop at the top and they
Dude, that's what it is. And the thing just starts shaking, and then you look over at the door, and it's a shitty gate that is not safe at all.
Yeah, it's just you can unlock it yourself.
Yeah, dude, like that does not feel safe. If I'm on there with a stranger who's just a crazy person, what if they just start rocking the boat? You know?
Right.
I want to be on that thing.
Right. Like, hey, we're stuck, and just start rocking. Yeah.
That. Not for me. And a lot of times too, Ferris wheels are at fairs, and I don't trust any ride out of fair because they put that shit up 2 days ago.
I do not go on fair rides, especially I see people go on that Zippo ride, and let me tell you something. The sounds that come out of that ride when it's rolling is like I've probably gotten hit with bolts walking by it. You know what I mean? Like it's pretty terrifying.
Yeah, you should just record that sound and have it as like a background of one of the videos. Like no. Someone will have PTSD of the zipper. Oh, dude, I remember wicked early. I wanted to ask this when we were talking about it, but we started BSing. But you're talking about sewing a little bit earlier. I know that you actually make a lot of your own stuff, which is super, super cool because, like you said, stuff you make is just so different from everybody else's. When did you start getting into that part? Because like for a wrestler, like the most frustrating, if any fan is listening right now, the most frustrating thing for pro wrestling.
Tell him, Brad.
Fucking gear made and the boots made and your knee pad covers. It takes forever, and then you're trying to give these people your money. You're trying to give them your business, and they just treat you like garbage. So, did it like kind of branch from that of like wanting to make stuff?
You know what's funny about that is I never had a problem. I had a problem with one gear maker throughout the entire time I've been wrestling. I went to amateur wrestling singlet lady because I'm like, at least she's going to be punctual with stuff. Right. Yes, I had one problem one time, but other than that, it didn't really stem from that. It just came about where so certain things, and I've talked to a few people about this before. So there's certain things that you have a vision of that you can tell somebody to make for you, but it could be it could be close to what you're imagining, but it might not be exactly what you want. So there's nothing better than taking your own vision and trying to make it yourself. Because if you do that, it's going to come out exactly how you picture it as far as detail or whatever it is that you're imagining or picturing that you want. So it was kind of stemmed off that, where I was just like, I had some of the stuff that I've put on my kick pads or knee pads over the years is just kind of stuff that like either gear makers probably can't get their hands on for the specific materials or like whatever I'm using, or it's out of their realm of how they can get that stuff on there. So I just started hand sewing. Like I just learned how to hand sew and just continue to do it over the years. And I actually have a sewing machine that I started messing around with. And I did make a pair of trunks, not for myself, but just to get some practice on how to, because it's a little more complicated than people would think, because you have to get the sizing right. And now if you want to make wrestling gear for other people, now you're going to go into the realm of like different sizes and getting those sizes to fit those, because you want everything to fit good. You don't want it to be,
and everyone's built so different.
Yeah, exactly, and you don't want everything to be kind of sloppy looking. So it's so I've been practicing with the sewing machine. So if I can get that down eventually to where I can do it fast enough to do something with it. You know what I mean? I don't want to be able to, if someone's like, hey, I want a pair of trunks, I don't want to sit there for months trying to make a pair
You don't want to be
trunks.
one of those gear makers I was just bitching about.
Yeah, you know what I mean? I don't want to be that. So, it kind of just stemmed from like the vision of this is how I want it to look, and the only way I'm going to get this done exactly how I want it to look is if I do it myself. And that's only with like certain things. So like the pants I wear now, Killa Custom Wear makes them for me. Kim, she does a lot of like metal bands. She does like WWE wrestlers. She does a bunch of different people. And she does my pants awesome. Like she's the best. She always gets them to me when I need them for whatever, big event we have. So I'm really happy with her business and dealing with her. But as far as anything else detail wise, like even if she sends me something and I think like I have a vision of like, oh, I could add my own thing to these. So then I'll add a little something different to them. So that's kind of like, so it's, and it's kind of handy too, because like I bring stuff with me on the road. So if someone's, gear rips or whatever, I can help them out and stuff.
I was just saying, I think I've seen you get people out of binds before with that.
yeah. So, it's
and
it's
you're
just
talking
a little
about
thing to have, you know what I mean? To be able to do that, like, comes in handy when I need it.
No, and you were saying that like you're good at coming up with an idea. We're not good at, but like, because you weren't patting yourself on the back. That's what I'm here for. It's coming up with ideas from scratch. You know what I mean? Like you're like, this is my vision. This is how I want it. Where I feel like I'm a good fine tuner. Like I'll be like, oh, this is kind of what I want. Just send me and then I'll get the image back. I'll be like, all right, I want to change this, and this. You know what I mean?
Yes. Yep.
And it's so much harder to come up with things just organically and from like the beginning. Like I'm trying to write these like the little bacon bits I've been doing, little comedy things.
Yep.
And I'm finding it so hard just to come up with an idea. And then after that, once I have that base idea, it's so easy to start, okay, what if I do this next and this next? But it's just getting that initial start. And you're absolutely like a moments guy. And I notice that like watching your work, like I feel I'll watch so many great matches on Ring of Honor, but it's hard. Like I'll be like, oh, that was a great match. And someone will be like, well, what did you like about it? And I'll be like, well, I like this, you'll name a couple moves or like a couple of sequences. But with you, it's like, oh, he turned to the camera and like made like a crazy look there and like gave me goosebumps. Or like when you chopped up the title, I remember. Or you went to go chop it up and then Lethal cut you off out of nowhere. Like
right. Well,
that was a moment. You know what I mean?
Right. Well, that match specifically that you bring that up is no one, including myself. I barely remember what we did exactly is in the match itself, but I do remember that in the beginning I held up the world title and I kicked it across the ring.
Yeah,
like kicked it across the ring.
And that was everywhere online. You know what I mean? Like that was the moment from the match.
And that exactly. So that was one of those things where it's like, you remember all those moments, like when you're a kid, you remember all those moments, like WrestleMania. One of my big moments that I remember as a child was Jeff Hardy standing on the ladder for the first ever swanton off the top of the ladder. It was a moment in that match that stood out to me as a child. And those kind of things is what I like to kind of look for. If you can get it out of a match, you know what I mean? Those moments that people can, give them something to remember,
Like you look at WrestleMania 18, the biggest moment was The Rock and Hogan just looking into the crowd.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
Like that was like
sure.
if you're doing a highlight where it's like a 1 second clip from every Mania, that's going to be that 1 second clip.
Sure.
For the Mania with Jeff Hardy, I think it's him like, to me, I'll always remember. I'll remember the flip where he hits his tailbone and barely crashes into Bubba. But I'll always remember the stand up because he had that sell on, like he was selling, like I'm dead. I fucking took everything to get up here.
That low camera shot,
right underneath where you see Bubba selling on the deal, and then he gets up and does the pose, and like you could see like the crowd lifted him up right there.
Yeah,
you know? And those are moments.
Great wrestling moments, man. moments are the best, man. Like, you know what I mean? And I think, like, you know, a lot of people would agree on that, you know, and I think, you know, it's nothing cooler than that. You know it too when you have those special kind of cool moments in wrestling. You know, everybody has had them in matches and stuff where like you can kind of organically feel the moment kind of, you know, being something special because in the match. Yeah.
So I'm gonna throw another question at you. Let's find a good one here. Oh, you know what, Joey G, dude, I'm gonna ask again. Pineapple on pizza. Please say you're in. Thank God. Oh.
Pineapple on pizza sucks.
Yeah, Flip said the opposite, and I said, Flip, you make me sick.
No, that's disgusting. You'll never see pineapple. You know what? Pineapple or ham on my pizza. You know?
Oh, no. Okay, so, yeah. Me and Flip talk. I said ham is just not as tough bacon. It's just a lamer version of bacon.
Right. Yeah. I could do bacon on pizza, but I can't do ham. First of all, I was never a huge fan of ham anyways growing up. Like I hated like when, you know, they would have ham dinners and stuff. I would never eat it. I hate the
smell.
Yeah, it does have a pretty distinct smell to it. But yeah, pineapple is a no-go and ham is a no-go. I'm sorry.
Listen, I'm right with you on both. That's why like Domino's would be like, oh, would you like to add the meatza, which is like a pizza full of meat? And I'm like, yeah, but take that shitty ham off.
Right.
So lately in Ring of Honor, there's been a ton of turnover. And I remember when all those guys kind of said, like, you know, it was out there that they were leaving. I honestly, like, you were like the first guy I thought of because I'm like, all right, this is a big chance for Vinny just because everything you do is so different. Now, how do you feel like do you feel like you've gotten that chance since all those guys left?
I think, you know, I think we were always kind of put in good positions, you know what I mean? Because even before anyone left, I mean, we were having good matches, you know, with everybody then too.
Yeah, with them, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And it was like, you know, it was the first 2 years of that actually, you know, if anything.
Night one, baby, I remember.
Oh yeah.
Dude, I was like a little kid watching you guys on the debut.
Oh yeah, on the debut. Yeah, Adam Cole and the Bucks. It was good. It was cool, man. And you know, and then when they left and New came in, it was kind of cool because it you know, there was different talent, good talent, you know what I mean? Everybody we have now is great. The locker room is fantastic at Ring of Honor right now. So I think as far as talent goes, people goes, like we in my opinion, we you know, the locker room is just awesome. And I think now when the transition happened of new people coming in, it was just cool to kind of get in there with people that you might have wanted to wrestle or be in the ring with, and now you're kind of getting that. So I mean, I think, like, to answer your question, I think, you know, I've always been kind of put in a good position in Ring of Honor as far as, but you know, there's still more to be done as far as, you know, myself specifically, you know what I mean, as far as like goals and stuff in Ring of Honor. But
and yeah, like absolutely. And like I always see them like they always are retweeting the videos you put out and really like pushing them, plugging them, because I think they see the value in that, because dude, it is such a cool and different thing that you're doing right now.
Thanks, man. Yeah, I try to, you know, like I said, I try to put out as much as I possibly can, and just kind of, well, because like for me, it's a test to myself. You know absolutely. What I mean? It's like, how, like, what's the next step now? Where do I go now? How does this evolve? Where does this evolve to? Yeah, you know what I mean? What's you know, similar to the conversation you just had with me about your videos that you've been doing. It's like, you know, what's next? How do I outdo my last? How do I outdo myself? You know what I mean? So it's one of those things where, you know, so it's kind of cool. It's always like a test of myself, and it's fun to do. You know what I mean? Because when you get that final product and like basically it started with nothing. It was just a thought. It's very hard to bring that idea.
When you word it like that, that's crazy. It's crazy how it sounds. You know what I mean?
Yeah. It's like you have nothing. It's blank. And then you have these ideas floating around your head. And then to take those, the hardest part is to take those ideas and put them on paper or bring them to life somehow. But when you finally do that, and you can watch it back, and you think to yourself, well, before I did this, I had nothing. It wasn't, and then it's just kind of like, your ideas start flowing. You can just start spitting them out everywhere, and then once you can bring it into one big thing, like a video or whatever it is, even if it's a photo that you had an idea of, and it just kind of comes to life just by like a simple little thought, and you bring it into whatever format you want, and then it's like this. You get this like prize at the end. It's kind of a good feeling because you're outdoing yourself. You know what I mean? And each time, if you can outdo yourself, it's cool.
And I notice anything like that too. Like for me personally, like that I work on, and I feel like I get so passionate about it. You know what I mean? So like when you see the videos getting good buzz and a bunch of things like that got to be so rewarding. Cause like even this podcast, like week one, we're recording this right after week one, by the way. Just to see the response it got and everything, it was just like I put so much into it, and to see me get that back from everybody who listened, it's just like it drove me 10 times more to keep it up. And when the videos keep coming up with new content and better content.
For sure, yeah. I actually I thought you just did one where you were in the bathroom stall. That's the one I just saw.
Well, dude, I had a bad case of mud butt.
Right. And you need help wiping. You're hurt. Like, I get it, man. Like,
yeah, dude. Zane, watching the footage back, Zane was gonna do it. It's fucking hard.
Yeah, right.
Away from it, fucking asshole.
Well, you cut us too short, man. You should have let it keep rolling.
Dude, no, because what I did was I took some toilet paper and wrapped it on the hook of the cane, but I wiped too deep, if you know what I'm saying. Wasn't good. Oh shit, dude. Man, I'm like, that's what I mean about these. Like for me, especially during this time, I love, like, I was working every weekend at that point, and I miss just being around everybody as much as I can. So having conversations like this, dude, it like really makes me feel like I'm in the locker room again.
Yeah, and it's cool, like you said, to catch up. I haven't talked to you, or I haven't seen you in forever.
I know, dude. I was supposed to be seeing you.
Yeah, you were supposed to see me a couple weeks ago.
Fuck that up.
Yeah, that's okay. That's okay. Just a little bump. That's all.
That's all it was. And everyone was really cool about that. Like I called and I was told that when I come back, the opportunity's still there. So like that was like super, super humbling to me because that was legitimately, I got hurt and I had two thoughts because I knew Dakota was watching. So I was like, all right, let me make sure she's not freaking out. And then I was like, oh no. I had a really, really big match this weekend.
Right. Yeah, but you gotta be healthy, and you're fine. You got the opportunity, like you said, and just heal up and get your ass back.
Now I get to talk to Vinny on the phone for a little bit. So this is, this was my end game. This was my end game. We were talking about end games earlier. This was it. I was like, you know what? I'm gonna tear my ACL so Vinny talks on the phone with me.
Right. That was the payoff. Here we are.
So the show's over, folks. This is the last episode.
You con artist bastard. You con me right into it.
Next time I'm gonna be jump jacking around and being all fine. So let everyone know where they can find you and see these great videos that I've been kissing your ass about all day, because legitimately they are like, I'm not joking with that. The three people I have on Twitter notifications are Adrian Wojnarowski, who is a basketball insider who gives pretty much every basketball news before ESPN does.
Right.
I have, yeah, dude, I'm such a nerd for basketball. I have you on notifications because I like seeing your content. And the last one I have on notifications is Stephen A. Smith because that's my boy. Gotta do it.
Thanks, man. I appreciate that very much, dude.
It's you and two ESPN personalities. Right. So odds are you're going to be working there one day.
Sure. ESPN. I can see it, right? You can see that, right?
Yeah, it's going to be like a horror center. Dun-dun-dun, dun-dun-dun. All right, so tell everyone where they can find you.
You can find me on Twitter. It's at the Horror King VM. Instagram's the Horror King Official, and my Facebook page. You can go give that a like, and that is at the Horror King Official as well. So and be sure to always tune in to this What's Sizzling with Bacon. Brad Hollister's the guy. So big bacon. Support him. Listen.
Listen, man, thank you so much for coming on. Really fun talking to you, catching up on everything.
Oh,
Hope
thank you,
everything.
man.
Oh, dude, trust me, man. I wanted you to be like one of my first couple guests because I was like, you helped me out way more than you could ever know. So thank you so much.
Appreciate that, man. Of course, anytime.
All right, hopefully I'll be seeing you soon, bud.
For sure.
All right, see ya.
Here's bacon, bacon, bacon.
That is our interview with the Horror King, Vinny Marseglia. Man, I always love catching up with Vinny. Like I said, Vinny helped me a lot more than he could ever realize in professional wrestling. So anytime I could sit back and talk to him, it's a good time. And like I said, he's just such a laid-back dude, man. And it's always fun to be able to catch up with Vinny and see what he's up to. Now, before we throw to the flippin' bacon, I want to make sure everyone is following our Twitter page at What's Sizzling and our Instagram page at What's Sizzling Podcast. Make sure you're subscribed to my YouTube channel. If you look up Brad Hollister, you'll be able to find me. Watch those bacon bits. Watch me on Twitch at Big Bacon Brad. Make sure you subscribe to this podcast and give us those much needed 5 stars, baby. Make sure you're subscribing to the podcast on iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, Podbean, TuneIn Radio, and pretty much anywhere that podcast could be heard. Now, let's toss it over, and we're going to hear some flippin' bacon. This week, it actually ended up working out pretty good. We planned these all out in advance, and this one just happened to fall on the day of the Horror King. Today, we talk about Ghost. Ooh. All right, this is another edition of Flippin' Bacon. Just got wrapped up with our interview with Vinny Marseglia. Flip Gordon in studios again.
Like I said, man, I am dedicated. I'm going to be here every single week. You're going to get tired of me probably.
Dude, listen.
Or I'm just going to convince you.
Still after that first week, I am a little tired of you from that first week. But the second week, we actually got our first flip ever. Flip. You kind of loosened your stance on aliens a little bit, man.
I did.
And this one was a fun one. We were talking about it earlier last week, and we're saying that we got to talk about ghosts. Because
we do.
I am one who does not believe in ghosts, and Flip one is one that thinks the spirits exist.
I do believe in ghosts, and I didn't when I grew up in Montana, but then I moved to the East Coast, and I had, I started, now I do.
Lived in the East Coast my whole life, and I think it's a crock of shit. So we're gonna talk about it today. So Flip, you're gonna have the floor first, and you're gonna try to convince me ghosts exist in 3, 2, 1, go.
So, what we see on the light spectrum is only a fraction of the whole light spectrum. And dogs and cats, they see a whole bigger, broader range on that light spectrum. Same with different frequencies that we hear. Dogs and cats and other animals can hear more or less and different things. So I feel like there's so much out there that we can't see or hear. So there's got to be spirits and ghosts, and there's a lot of things that are unknown. And if you believe in aliens, come on, how do you not believe in ghosts? Damn it, time's up.
Time's up, Flipper. So let's stop that clock real quick.
Man. Add some more points.
No, you had some points, but I'm gonna dive into my debate, and then we'll go back and forth, and I'll tell you why you were crazy wrong. But I'm not gonna touch what you said in my 30 seconds because I want to leave my 30 seconds to me.
Because you already had it planned. You gotta come on, man.
Listen, I'm writing
on the fly,
I'm writing sick notes over here, bro. I'm gonna start in 3, 2, 1. First thing in my notes just says ghosts are absolutely ridiculous. The fact that people think spirits are floating around, first of all, is if after you die, you have a choice of what you do, and your choice is just roam around the earth and watch regular humans live, you're a piece of shit anyways. So I think ghosts don't exist because that's not what ghosts would do with their time. If like I said, if ghosts were an actual thing, they would not be just roaming around watching people just live their life. That's the last thing they would want to be doing because they're like, oh shit, I'm not
Time's
a person
up.
anymore. And okay, so now I'm gonna start this.
All right,
I'm gonna
keep
open
going.
the floor.
Just keep going.
Because I'm getting hot out here, brother. So what you said, I didn't want to touch on it in my 30 seconds, but what you said was you were talking about light frequencies and sound frequencies. All that is science shit, right? Correct? Am I right?
Yes.
So I'm correct. This is science. Ghosts and spirits are literally like the opposite of science. There's no science behind a ghost existing.
So do you believe in a soul?
No.
So you don't believe that you're a soul, that you have a soul?
No. I don't think
So what happens to you when you die?
I'm fucking in the ground. It's sucky, dude. I'm not saying like I have the happiest outlook.
What happens after death?
Nothing.
Nothing?
Nothing.
There has been proven science that the brain realizes once it's dead. There's been proven the brain still is functioning
when you get
for
buried,
a certain amount of time. So there's a realization that you are dead.
Yeah, that may happen.
What's that mean? What happens?
You're just out cold. When you get buried, they don't bury you with your brain.
Are you religious?
That's a whole other topic.
It is a whole other topic.
We could dive in. I wouldn't mind diving into that. But like the whole thing on souls and ghosts and spirits and all this other stuff is there's nothing. Like, everything to me just seems like happenstance. Like, you ever watch those ghost shows where a guy walks into, like, a supposedly haunted building, and he's like, "What's up, ghost bro? Come scare me, bro."
I don't watch those, and I don't watch a lot of TV because I feel like a lot of TV's a work, and I feel like it's just programming.
I think ghosts are a
because
work.
it's programming your mind to think a certain way, and I just prefer not to do that.
And we'll talk. I love television, and I don't feel like I'm programmed with ghosts. I think ghosts are the biggest bullshit. Like, I think it's like a fear thing, like, oh, kids, gonna be good today, or the ghost is gonna come out and get you, boogie woogie woogie. Like,
no, see, I don't think ghosts can really harm you.
No, I don't think so. Okay, so then
because I feel like they're of another dimension, but that's a whole other topic.
Okay, but when people say, oh, ghosts knock this thing over, like, that shit can't happen. It's if you really think that's a spirit and that's a soul and that's a ghost or whatever, it doesn't take an actual physical embodiment.
See, I believe we're a soul, and I believe our soul goes somewhere when we die.
Where?
But
like, are you gonna go?
It depends on what you believe.
Is it
depends on what
reincarnation,
you believe.
or are you just chilling in heaven?
It depends on what you believe.
Or okay, so if that's the case, why are ghosts just roaming around?
Because maybe they didn't do right. Maybe they didn't get into heaven.
So when do they go to hell?
I personally don't believe in hell. I believe heaven. I mean, I believe hell is on earth. I feel like this is a stage. I feel like this is a stage and a lesson that we have to go through in life to learn the ultimate lesson. And once we learn that is when we get to heaven.
So everyone gets to heaven?
I don't think everyone gets to heaven because I don't think everyone's really gonna. I don't think everyone's.
Well, you're saying you're saying everyone has a chance to get to heaven.
Everybody has a chance. I believe that. Yes.
Do you believe all dogs go to heaven? Because that was a great movie.
It was a great movie.
Yeah, I think all dogs go to heaven. That's where we're gonna wrap it up. Because I don't think we're gonna flip each other on this. I really don't think we're gonna flip each other on this.
You believe in aliens? How do you not believe in ghosts?
That's a completely different thing.
It's out of this world. Yeah, ghosts are out of this world as well.
Okay, but there are other planets, right?
Yes.
Correct. Yes. There are other planets. There's no, like, we could see other planets. I can't see a heaven which a spirit would come from.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Well, I mean, we want to hear from you guys. What do you believe? Do you believe ghosts are real, or do you think it's just a hoax?
A big crock
You think it's just a big work on the world?
It's the largest, well, not the largest, but it is a work. There's a lot of works out there, and we're going to try to break them down.
We want to hear from you. Use the hashtag #FlipAndBacon.
Make it sizzle, baby.
See you next week.
That's all, folks.